Alright, so Stranger Things ended a few months ago. I was in 8th grade when I first heard about Stranger Things. I'm in my last year of college now, so that's something. I never watched the show. I was never that interested in it, but one of the things that I was aware of, despite not watching the show, was its heavy use of nostalgia. I know that the show takes place in the 80s, and that's very 80s themed, but I had to wonder why it was so heavily nostalgia based. Granted, it's not the only show that's been like that. Regular show was ran from 2010 to 2018. It had lots of heavy nostalgia with the music and some of the plot lines of the story, like some of the video games that they would use. Still, I was wondering why it was a thing. I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I listen to a lot of older music. If you look through my CD collection, you'll see that most of the records in that collection came out between the 60s and the 90s. Not much stuff from the modern era, save for like a few records. But even so, it seems that I'm not the only person that's like that. There are lots of movies and some music that has become kind of recycled. Fashion seems to be very recycled. It doesn't really seem to have a theme other than being very drab and sometimes like old. I know people my generation have a tendency to wear clothes that are older. Music especially is becoming more old, nostalgic. If you've ever been on Instagram, I'm sure you've seen some of the bands that advertise themselves as the next Metallica or the next Van Halen. All just watered down versions of those groups just to try and make themselves bigger. And of course, last year, 2025, I think all of the top movies that came out that year were either remakes or sequels. I know Revenge of the Sith re-released in theaters. I think the only original movie that came out that year was Sinners. I think a lot of that has to do with the economy. The need to go back to the good old days before things got worse. Nobody's really interested in looking into the future because the future seems terrible. And there's not really anything fun going on right now. There's no innovation or new ideas. It's just currently just a bubble that's about to pop in a constant state of dread that constantly lingers in us. And I think it's seeping into our entertainment because of that, because of the fact that we are not only living in a bad time, but also because of the fact that we're looking towards older material that we consequently have our movies and our music and our fashion become more nostalgic or nostalgia based. And I wonder where this is going to end up. I think usually when art becomes kind of stagnant, there's usually a period of stagnation before things blow up again. If you think about music, for example, in 1980 there was that push with AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne, Judas Priest, Motorhead, when they released their landmark records before MJ released Thriller in 82, of course, and then 91 with Nirvana, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and Ozzy again, which kind of after the 80s kind of stagnated a little bit. As far as movies go, I'm not a huge movie buff, but I know there were some movies that I'm sure defined the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s and so on. And I think, in my personal theory, is that usually when it comes to things like this, it's usually music that kind of kicks things back into gear. Like I said, with 1980 or 1991, usually those years are defined by albums, not movies. If I think about the 60s, it wasn't defined by Clint Eastwood, it was defined by the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Jimi Hendrix. And that kind of just keeps going on. It seems to me that music is it's at the forefront of culture, and for when culture changes or needs to change, it's usually music that kind of kicks things into gear. And it's also music that's the first to fall when things begin to stagnate, but that's just my theory. But yeah, so that's why I think that nostalgia is the reason why entertainment's become a lot worse recently. And I think in order for our music and our movies and our fashion to get better, we kind of have to try and get out of nostalgia and try to look more into the future and where we want things to be, rather than keep looking into the past when things used to be. Because those days are gone and they don't define this era. We define the era. If we define the era, and if we define it by using the past, and things stagnate. So we just have to figure out how to get out with the past and into the future. So yeah, that's it. See ya.